Hello friends, today we're making shrimp scampi. I don't know where this recipe originally came from. I've had it a long time in a Word document, but I don't think I made any changes to it. I'll add my own substitutions. This one I'm pretty sure is original. So I am going to show you a quick way to get half a box of spaghetti or 8 ounces of spaghetti out. Just look at the opening, kind of like level it so that the pasta is all in the same place. Cover half of it with your hand and then pour it. And you'll see there's a little bit extra. Kind of keep pulling some out until you see that the box looks half full, everything's level. You got 2 squares, or a square of darkness and a square of pasta. That's 8 ounces. So this skillet is, I think, 12 inches wide. I always use it to make spaghetti because you need less water than if you were to put it in a big old pot. And then I also don't like breaking my spaghetti in half. That's another thing you could do if you don't have a large container to make spaghetti. Just crack them in half the first while they're dry and then cook it. So the pasta is beginning to boil right now, and I'm going to mince the garlic. This recipe calls for 8 ounces of pasta, spaghetti specifically, and 3 cloves of garlic. You might see 4 cloves here. One of them is pretty small, and I am liberal with my garlic measurements because the cloves aren't all the same size. So kind of figure that out on your own. If it says 2 or 3 cloves, 2 or 3 average size cloves. This recipe I made with thin spaghetti, so it didn't have to boil as long. Regular spaghetti or angel hair pasta will work very well too. Just keep in mind that the thicker it is, the longer you'll have to cook the pasta. This one ended up cooking completely, and I don't like al dente, I like it a little bit more overcooked, but it ended up cooking completely once I was finished mincing the garlic. So I'm testing the pasta. That is a good way to do it really quickly. Just grab some and see if it's limp. And it looked fine. I turned off the heat at this point, and I think I even pulled a little bit. Yep, I pulled some out to taste it, and it was good. So at this point, I'm going to drain the pasta in the sink with the colander, and then I'm going to store the pasta in a container for the end of the recipe. I happen to be using the same skillet because I didn't want to clean too many things. That is 1 tablespoon of butter we're throwing in. I'm putting it on medium-low heat.
We've been looking in each other's eyes. It's been a long time trying to get it right. Is there anything left there for you?
Now we're adding 2 tablespoons of olive oil and then mix it pretty well. If you're missing one of these ingredients, I'm pretty sure you can use all butter or all olive oil. I don't think it matters that much. I know the butter has a flavor, more of a flavor than, well, I guess olive oil has a pretty good flavor too. But I think the only reason the butter was in the recipe was flavor related. So once you've got that mixed, throw in the garlic and then stir it up and let the garlic brown for a bit. It says to saute it for 1 minute. I tend to think that the timing is a little off on some of my recipes, so it's still on medium-low heat, but perhaps if the heat were lowered, 1 minute would be too short. Maybe if it's really high, 1 minute's a lot. So there it is, kind of done. Now we're going to add some vinegar. I'm adding a 1/4 cup of white distilled vinegar. This is the same exact vinegar I used to clean my house. And it steamed a little bit because the pot was so hot, so I turned on the vent and added the rest of it. I think the original recipe called for white wine, and I believe vinegar's a substitute. Perhaps that's why I wrote it. I don't usually cook with vinegar. Let me know if you think that's wrong. Then we're going to add a 1/4 cup of lemon juice.
Time. 100 more tries will make it true.
Now the recipe calls for salt and pepper to taste. It says saute quickly, being careful not to overcook, about 30 seconds, and then turn down heat to low, which is apparently what that is. I don't like seeing my arm shake and ripple when I'm messing with the stove controls, but there's not a good place to put the camera otherwise. The recipe does not include this, but I decided to add a little bit of cayenne to taste as well because I've been craving a lot more spicy food lately, and I figured it would add something to the dish. So I'm going to let that saute for a bit, and it'll get a little bit darker. Just make sure that the garlic isn't getting too dark, because if it gets too dark, that means it's burning. So as long as your garlic isn't getting too dark, you're good.
Yeah, I know you, baby. Yeah, I know we both have much more to give. And when you meet someone else,
this recipe I found, I guess I kind of found out about it or realized what it was back when I was living in Vegas. So this would have been 2013 or earlier. A friend of mine had me over at her house, and she made shrimp scampi, and she made it by throwing in a stick of butter in a skillet, a bunch of garlic, a bunch of shrimp, and then threw that on top of spaghetti. And I remember thinking, this recipe is really delicious, although that's quite a lot of butter, and it was probably that's why it was so delicious. Butter makes everything taste good. And I remember thinking, oh, I love recipes that use like 5 or fewer ingredients. A few of my recipes do, not a lot lately, especially the ones that are more vegan. But if I find a recipe that uses very few ingredients, I get excited about it. So I started making it, and before she invited me to her house, I literally had never like really messed with shrimp scampi or knew what it was or anything. If you're enjoying the recipe so far, please like, share, and subscribe so we can reach more viewers. Normally, the content is vegan or low carb because of my health issues in those categories, but this is a special treat.
you follow, hope you follow them. When you miss a touch, yeah, I hope you say as much and never falter.
So while the garlic was sauteing, I was peeling a pound of shrimp. So that's what that bowl is. And this recipe says to cook the shrimp on each side for 1 to 3 minutes. I decided to try 1 minute on each side because I had just made shrimp stir fry, and I cooked the shrimp a very short time for that, and it came out very good. And I thought 6 minutes total seems like a lot. These were packaged as jumbo shrimp, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know what size shrimp would actually need 3 minutes on each side, but I did one on each side. And I will admit, while this side was cooking, I actually cleaned the bowl and washed my hands of the shrimp juice. So they cooked a little bit longer than a minute, but for the most part, yes, they were a minute on each side. And I'm flipping them here, and we'll do 1 more minute on this side. It's not a big deal if you overcook shrimp. It just tastes a little chewier, and it's firmer and harder. It's kind of like overcooking chicken breast. I found that you can't really overcook dark chicken. I think that's because it cooks at a higher temperature than breast meat does, or white meat. But with shrimp, you can overcook it in that it just tastes weird. And this was only slightly overcooked. What I should have done right now was turn off the stove and move the skillet off the, the hot part, because with electric stoves, that's the only downside, is that the thing stays hot after you turn it off. So I should have just taken it completely off the fire at this point, maybe saved a little bit on my shrimp and made them a little bit less firm, or not washed that bowl when they were cooking before I started the timer on a minute. But they're basically all done. The shrimp that were kind of like scooched up along the wall of the pan were a little uncooked on that part because it doesn't get as hot there. So I had to let them sit in the center a little bit longer. So right now what I'm doing is just moving the shrimp into the container with the pasta. I should have just poured the whole thing, and normally I would have if I didn't have a camera to worry about, but I wanted to make sure the shrimp stayed off the pan like immediately. And then I poured the sauce that you see there into that container afterwards. So this shot has the sauce included. Do not omit that sauce. That will cling to the pasta and make it taste very buttery and garlicky. And I dropped a shrimp, but we're saving it. Um, that sauce is very important. So yeah, just toss it. You can cover, like put the lid on the container and shake it up if that's works for you. Or you could just put the pasta in that big skillet and stir it up if that works for you. Whatever you think is easier. Now it's time to taste the shrimp scampi. I don't know what scampi means. Well, now aren't we crazy? Scampi means shrimp. This is a shrimp dish. What the heck? I don't understand it. I thought scampi meant like, I don't know, garlicky pasta or something. Italian was not my foreign language. I'm sorry, it was French. So, oh, I thought I saw a shell, a shrimp shell, but that's not a shell. It was pretty soft, so I just left it in there. Maybe it was skin that got cooked darker? Probably. So this is what it looks like. I think one thing you could add, which I just thought of right now, like some green herbs to the pasta after everything's mixed up. Like it would probably be nice with some basil or oregano or whatever, parsley, those kind of herbs. But I never make it that way because I just thought of it, like I said. And also I do like few ingredient recipes. So this was very delicious. It was very garlicky and buttery flavoring and olive oil flavoring, and the sauce stuck to the pasta very well. And it does reheat well if you don't overcook your shrimp. I hope you enjoyed this recipe very much, guys. Happy eating!